So, okay, we get past this. Everything checks out. You are assured that I'm going to be producing quality middle grade books from here to eternity, and we're going to have a wonderful career. Now, 6 months, an appropriate window. I don't expect you to give away your secret sauce about how you're going to attack the different editors and find the best deal. But how involved am I going to be? What's our relationship look like while we're out on submission versus once we have somebody?
So, when the submissions can vary. Like, the submissions can take anywhere from, a few weeks to a few years. And it varies for every single, it varies individually for every single one of my clients. And, sometimes we go out on submission with multiple projects, and it's, so I can't really say how that's going to look for you particularly. But if I get you a deal, and we sign the contract, woohoo, and everybody's happy, and maybe we sign you a contract. Let's say it's a 2-book deal, because that's kind of the most common at this point. Then there will be a little bit of a transition to your editor. Now, hopefully your editor is someone who is stable. I have had it happen where, a client, we had a big deal, we had a great editor who'd been there for, years. And then, just as she turned in her final draft, that editor left, and then they had a new editor for a month, and then that editor left, and then they had a new editor, so that does happen. So then,
horror story. I am horrified for that writer.
It is hard, but at the same time, I'm there for them, so I'm there to lean on editorially if they need me. And I'm there to talk to the publishers and make sure, and usually the publisher gets it together, and, then there'll be an editor and they'll, move forward. But yes, so that does happen. But ideally we get you an editor who's there long-term, and, then there will be a little bit of a transition where you will be working with the editor on some of the stuff that you would have been working on with me if you hadn't gotten your deal. And marketing and publicity will start stepping in. We'll start having conversations. What I will do, I'll kind of hover a little bit. So I tell my clients to always CC me on every communication, so I can know what's going on, kind of as a broad picture. I won't necessarily enter the conversations with the marketing team or with the editorial team or whatever, but I will definitely know. And there's moments like for example, okay, copy editing is done. I need to know when that moment happens so I can send that finished manuscript to the film agents, for example. Or cover conversations. I need to know what's happening in the cover conversation so I know if my author is happy or unhappy. And usually most of my clients will let me know if they're happy or unhappy, but there's some quieter ones that just are kind of going along for the ride. And if I don't see any of the conversations happening, I won't know, So, but then it becomes more of I'm sort of, just kind of keeping an eye on things while things progress, and then stepping in if I'm needed, kind of idea.
Okay, so my editor and I are chatting. She's got lots of great ideas, but she desperately wants me to include the word that, which I have carefully taken out because I wage war against the word that, and I can't take it. Do I get you involved? I want to be polite to the editor. Don't want to be too aggressive, even though adding that when I have taken it out is the worst thing a person could do. Do I come to you and say, Mary, help me, she's putting the that's in, or should I try to resolve that on my own? And if it starts to go bad, then come to you. What's the best way to do that?
It's probably better to involve me early, and even if involving me just means you're venting to me, you're just saying, I don't want to put the that's in my manuscript. And then maybe I can kind of discuss with you, well, this is why, the editor wants to put the that's in. Is that still not good enough for, what are your reasons for being angry? And yeah, so it's better to involve me earlier so I'm aware of how you're feeling. And so it doesn't kind of bubble up and then kind of explode.
So long as she doesn't put a space before the ellipses, right after the ellipses instead of before. Otherwise, it's all out war. That's that's too far gone at that point.
Yeah.
Double space at the end of a sentence. Oh my god.
That's my pet peeve. I'm take them out, all of them.
But at the same time, we'll say it's a little bit more substantial than that. And I'm assuming that before we ever get to the official contract, we've already talked with the editor. We have some idea of what types of changes they want to make to the manuscript. But say it's that situation you described where the editor we signed the contract with is there a month and now they're gone, and the new editor comes in, like Joss Whedon replacing Zack Snyder, and wants to mess with my baby and make some more significant decisions. Is there a point where we walk away, or do we do the best we can with the contract that we have and try and have a that-less book next time?
Well, I mean, most contracts you're not going to really be able to walk away. Like once you sign that contract, you're kind of locked in. If you guys can't, because I mean, there are kind of clauses that you can. There are ways to end the contract, but there's that's going to mean a lot of repayment, a lot of burned bridges, a lot of that kind of thing. Usually editors who come in are everybody's very nice, actually. Editors tend to be one of the nicest sets of people that I've ever met. And so usually we can work things out. I've found that honestly, like, editorial has not been problematic for my clients. It usually is the cover. So the cover is the
cover. What do we do then?
Yeah, the cover is something that, and it depends, but I will definitely, then it's like you bring me into the conversation, and we will discuss with, like, for example, how comfortable you are bringing up your dislikes of the cover. If you're not comfortable bringing it up, then I will bring it up for you. Discuss with the editor. Even I can say, like, I can do it privately, so you're not even involved in the conversation, so you don't even have to, like, it depends on your level of social anxiety, right? But I can definitely help you through that. Or if you are comfortable, because often when it's a cover problem and I'm relaying your stress to the editor, things get lost in translation. And so it's best if you're able to, like, kind of be honest and upfront, but I can kind of coach you through how to do that as well before you do. So but it's taken on a variety of different ways, but that tends to be the more common problem than the editorial.
I, of course, podcaster extraordinaire, have had conversations with the world's finest editors, so I would be fine with this. But if I'm the average author, or back in the day, wouldn't it be better I come to you and let you do it, since you're used to dealing with editors? You've got the proper finesse versus me going in and trying to be polite, but not being an expert at talking with editors and maybe putting my foot in my mouth, because obviously I'm passionate about this book. That's why I wrote a book.
Sure. I mean, that's why you and I would have a conversation ahead of time. So you and I would have a conversation about, okay, what would you like to say? What are your issues with the cover? Maybe here's a good way to word that. But the other thing to remember too is, like, if you have been signed a contract with an editor, that editor now should be just as much a part of your team as I am. I mean, the idea is that, I will be there long term through the different editors, through the different, publishers. Hope that's the ideal. But the supreme ideal is that I will hook you up with an editor who will also be there for the next 4, 5, 6, like, through your storied career. That the odds of that happening are much smaller. So, we need to lean on the fact that I will be there long term. And not necessarily that particular editor, but you do need to think of that editor as being the third part of a 3-person team, and one who is project managing once I've kind of given over the reins with the contract. So, you need to be comfortable reaching out to them and discussing things with them. That being said, again, if you're concerned, like you sound like you're concerned, then I would be more than happy to step in and have a conversation with the editor about the cover that you so intensely dislike.
Well, this thing you're playing a little bit of matchmaker, but professional, of course, and you're trying to match up a great editor. So you put some time and thought into this editor that you've matched my book with to make sure that they're going to be, hopefully. Do you spend time thinking about what are these two personality types? Are they going to be able to work together well? Or is it more a question of, do they have the best contract? will this be the best opportunity for the book, even if the editor is maybe a little bit, what's the word? Maybe just a little bit rougher on writers than this newbie debut author who's coming along is maybe ready for?
I'll definitely think about that. For the most part, though, I don't know every editor personally. And so what I tend to look at, and there's a lot of turnover, there's a lot of editors leaving. I just told you about that example. And so what I focus more on is the imprints, how do the imprints treat their writers? Hopefully I'll know an editor who's been stable there for a while. And those tend to be the first people I go to. But sometimes at the end of the day, we're out on submission and we've gone to 10 imprints and the 11th is the one that makes the offer. If that 11th is not necessarily someone I know, or if it is someone I know but they leave in a month, there's no guarantee that the editor author relationship will be perfect. And so that's kind of what I'm here for, to make sure that you feel smooth, you feel comfortable with everything happening. And if you get to a point where you're just not happy with your editor, then definitely we can talk to the imprint, the publisher, about shifting things around, things like that. But that's a pretty rare case. It's usually the other way around. Usually the editor's getting tired of the author, and that hasn't happened in any of my clients, but I've heard cases of that happening.
Well, then I guess this would be a terrible question since your clients have never had that issue. But say that you actually were to sign me, I would probably create an issue. That sounds like something I would do. How would you go about resolving that?
Well, it depends, it depends on the size of the issue, right? Like it's not like my clients, I have some clients that are, a little bit more demanding than others, and that's totally normal and totally fine. And I can appreciate that side of them. But, I navigate them that appropriately, with editors, so maybe conversations will be happening that, I'll talk to them about like, hey, do you feel like this editor is doing enough for you? And if you don't, like, let me explain to you what they are doing for you. And I just try to be direct and honest and talk through, some of and a lot of times I find when a client is being particularly what maybe some people would think is demanding, it's actually usually based out of insecurity, like that they feel that their book isn't being given the attention they want, or that it's not, or even that it's not being treated the way that they dreamed, and so it's more about me getting to the root of the insecurity and solving it for them.